Hello, and welcome to the Gem Stream, a production of the Gem State Substack. I'm your host, Brian Allman. Remember to subscribe at gemstate.substack.com, where free subscribers get a couple of articles a week on local politics and big picture political trends. Paid subscribers, for the price of a cup of coffee a week, get early and exclusive access to articles, videos, and podcasts. Today, I am proud to bring you an interview with a man that I knew by reputation long before I ever met him in person. Dustin Hurst has been a political reporter, an activist. He was the vice president at the Idaho Freedom Foundation. He's a pugnacious, rhetorical brawler on Twitter, but he's also one of the hardest working people in politics that I've ever met. He was kind enough to join me for this interview. I hope you enjoy it. Dustin, how are you?
Oh, I'm good, Brian. How are you today?
I'm doing all right. So I hear you just got back from somewhere.
Oh my goodness. I just stepped off the plane from Scottsdale, Arizona about 2 hours ago. Got home, brushed my teeth, and now I'm here with you. Hopefully we'll have a good podcast episode today.
Cool. Well, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you taking a few moments to share your story with me and my readers.
Sure. Absolutely. I'd love to do it. I love what you're doing. I think everybody, just if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, I'm a subscriber. You should be a subscriber. Do it now. Like, take a minute, do it now. There you go.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll clip that for bumpers. Like
there you go
on the radio.
Perfect.
So something I've actually always wondered. I've met you a few years ago. I know a bit of your story, but how did you actually get started in politics? What's your origin story?
Actually, it's the Uniparty got me started in politics, and it was really funny. So all through college, I was interested in politics, mostly because I did construction and labor jobs and listened to Glenn Beck all the time. He was really funny. So I came down to Boise State, and I knew that I wanted to do something with politics, but I wasn't quite sure. And so I studied communication and political science. I mean, not the most rigorous majors in the world, but it's paid off, I suppose. And I graduated, still didn't know what I wanted to do. And at the time, it was when we had stimulus packages coming out, and Dave Beater was trying to get money for a trolley in downtown Boise. And I was like, well, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Which it was the stupidest thing, because he wanted it would have gone like 15 blocks. It's like, okay, like we have an obesity epidemic in Boise and in the country. Like maybe we don't need a train for 15 blocks, right? But at the same time, Mike Crapo was pushing for a restoration of Amtrak service to Boise, and which is now Mayor McLean's new thing, right? That's what she's doing. And so I messaged the Idaho Freedom Foundation on Twitter. Of course, my job comes through Twitter and involves Twitter somehow. But I messaged the Idaho Freedom Foundation on Twitter. Wayne and I had worked together in the congressional office. I was an intern, a very bad intern for Bill Sally. And I said, hey, I want to write about, excuse me, the Uniparty. I didn't call it that at the time because I wasn't that savvy. But the Uniparty pushing for stupid trains and wasting our stupid money. So Wayne messaged me back and he said, yeah, write it. So I wrote it. He took one look at it and he laughed at it and he said, we need somebody to write for us. I'll pay you this wage. I actually took like a $10,000 pay cut to go work for Wayne. But it was the best choice I ever made, because then it launched an illustrious career into the world of politics. So that's how it involves, Twitter, Mike Crapo being a scumbag, and Dave Beater's trolley and the stimulus. It's fantastic.
It all started with a trolley, huh?
Yep.
I've been listening to, various people talk about how they got involved in politics. I heard Butch Otter the other day say that, I think it was Butch Otter, was inspired by JFK's inaugural speech, "Ask not what your country can do for you." And I've met many conservatives who were inspired by Reagan in 1980 and 1984, and that's what got them in. So it's interesting that there's some people who are inspired by politicians to get involved, and then there are others who are just outraged by politicians, and that's how they get involved.
Which one are you?
I don't know. I think I'm just a political junkie where, ever since I'm a child, I was a child, I've just enjoyed watching the process, and I wanted to I guess I'd lean more toward the outrage side because I get frustrated by what, people in power do, and I want to go in there
Right.
and change things and nudge things in the direction I'd like to see them go.
Yeah. No, I think for me, part of it was I was a super Boy Scout when I was a kid, and raised Mormon, and as a Boy Scout, it was also like, hey, these are our leaders. They're good people. They do good things. We should respect our leaders. And then I got reality and I was like, oh, these are bad people and they're doing bad things. And we need to crush the system that they're working in and get them out of office and ruin everything they're trying to do. So it was quite the shift for me. So I'm more the outrage type where it's like, look, my whole story revolves around, I just want to be left alone. Like, leave me alone. Stop taking my money. Stop giving it to people who don't deserve it. Stop telling me which light bulbs I can have or how many hamburgers I can eat, because I can eat all of them. Like, just leave me the hell alone. By the way, there should be a trigger warning on this podcast because I'm going to say something that's going to offend somebody. But anyway, that's where I'm at. So I wish I could be that. Oh, Reagan said something, but that's just not who I am.
No, well, I think the process is better for having you in it, and other people who are frustrated by it, because otherwise, people go in there with either with good intentions or with just they think they're doing a good thing by regulating how many hamburgers you can eat, because, well, like you said, we have an obesity epidemic, right?
There is that. Yes, absolutely.
So I want to know a little bit about your current job, People United for Privacy.
Yep.
What do you do? What does the organization do? And what are some of the things that they're working on, or working against, I should say, to that are important for people to know about?
And for your listeners and readers, this is actually directly relevant to Idaho. So I worked for Idaho Freedom Foundation for, I think, a total of 12 years, which was a great time, really great time. We made a lot of progress. But I jumped ship to People United for Privacy Foundation to do fundraising work, which is challenging. It's interesting. Like you said, it takes me all over the country. It's crazy. The job's not what I thought it was, but it's fantastic. But People United for Privacy does donor protections, so that if you donate to a 501c3 nonprofit, a 501c4 nonprofit, 501c6, or any other type of nonprofit, your name isn't exposed to the public. We try to put those protections in place. Your name isn't exposed to the public so that activists can show up at your doorstep. You can be harassed by politicians or bureaucrats or whatever. That's what we do. Now, you think, oh, well, you're just trying to protect, excuse me, the millionaires and billionaires that you work for. Well, first of all, a couple things. A lot of people would say, oh, well, this is dark money. Well, dark money is not a thing. We'll get into that later. But we protect both the left and the right, because as much as I hate Planned Parenthood and ACLU and some people on the left, they still have their free speech rights, and they should be able to speak and join the conversation, even if I hate what they have to say. The other thing is, and this is where it gets directly relevant for Idaho, there are people in the Idaho legislature, lots of them actually, who want to know who funds the Idaho Freedom Foundation and Idaho Freedom Action. Why? Well, they say it's transparency. Is that what it is? Absolutely not. They want an enemies list. They want it so that they can hand it off to agencies, to politicians, and most importantly, the media, right? We know that Brian Holmes, if Brian Holmes ever got his hands on the IFF media or a donor list, or the IFA donor list, excuse me, I am all sorts of tired. He would spend years digging into every single donor. Anyone who had ever given a dollar, Brian Holmes would go after them day after day after day and make their lives a living hell. So I just don't think that's appropriate. And I don't think that we need to give enemies lists to politicians or activists or bureaucrats.
I remember a couple of municipalities that have released lists of, say, concealed carry permit holders.
Yep.
I think California and New York both did that. And of course, that anybody who does that, that's they're up to no good. They're trying to go after individual people who are either exercising their rights, or in the case of donating to nonprofits, exercising their right to take part in the discourse.
Exactly. And there was the worst case that I've heard of, and there are isolated cases of this, of donors being harassed. In California, there was a Mormon waitress, who gave $100 to the Prop 8, the traditional marriage fight, like 10 years ago, whatever that was. It seems like an eternity ago, quite frankly, given where we're at in culture. But she gave $100 because she thought that traditional marriage was so important that we should fight over it, and that it should be enshrined in the Constitution of California. Somebody leaked a donor list. Activists showed up at her restaurant where she served food to customers, and they protested for weeks on end. They spit on customers. They called them all sorts of names. They disrupted traffic. It got so bad that California officials had to send in riot police to restore order. Eventually, she quit her job because she knew that this was hurting her, her colleagues and her team there. And she was like, I'm done. I'm done being a distraction. I want you guys to have peace. So that's the type of stuff that absolutely would happen, both right and left, but more toward conservatives, if we release donor lists, and that's just not appropriate.
Yeah, I remember that when that donor list was leaked, Brendan Eich, the software engineer who had created Mozilla Firefox, created the JavaScript scripting language, he was forced out from his position at Mozilla. And that led him to go found Brave, which I guess, that's a victory in the long run. But not everyone has the ability to, just jump to something new. A lot of people would be completely ruined if they were made the target of someone like a Brian Holmes.
Yeah, absolutely. And as there was a shooting at a Planned Parenthood clinic in Helena, Montana, a couple weeks ago. Now, again, I think Planned Parenthood is probably the worst organization on the face of this earth besides Hamas, and maybe they're right neck and neck. They're really bad, right? But I don't know that you should be shot at for supporting an organization like that. I don't know.
Yeah, that doesn't go down a good road for our country either way.
Yeah, because violence begets more violence, and it will just keep swinging back and forth. And as distasteful as you find other speech, it's the first freedom in the Bill of Rights for a reason, and this is an associational right guaranteed by the First Amendment, as much as we hate it. So yeah, it's a tough argument to make, and people don't always understand it, and they don't like it, because I think both sides now have this impulse, and I think this was always on the left, but I think it's growing on the right, of we need to find our enemies and punish them, cancel them, expose them, whatever it takes to win. And I'm not playing that game, not at all. In fact, I run Idaho Freedom PAC, which is the parallel PAC to the Idaho Freedom Foundation. They don't like work. They work in tandem, but not like directly. And we did a bunch of text messages in Boise last year, or 2 years ago, whenever the last election cycle was. And I had a guy show up at my door because my address was on the paperwork, and he gave my wife a hard time. I was asleep, because I'd been Ubering the night before or whatever. And the dude was lucky I didn't show up at the door, because I was pissed. So it terrorized my wife, my kids. It's not something that I think we should do. I think, and there are people on the right and left who disagree with me, but I think homes, kids are off limits, absolutely off limits.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when you run for office, you put your address out there, unless you use a PO box. So when you create a PAC, you put your address out there. So, a lot of us are already out there, and I'm surprised there hasn't been more incidents at doorways, thankfully. Yeah. But yeah, regular people shouldn't have to deal with that.
And I think I want to be clear, because a lot of people say during the pandemic, protests at homes were common. And I've thought about this a lot. I think eventually, if we get down the road of tyranny where, public officials are holding us in our homes at gunpoint, or, just exacting massive tyranny on us, the police state, we're in martial law, going to an official's house would be okay. I'm totally cool with that. But I just don't think we're there. And, over text messages or donations to political groups that you hate, I don't think that's appropriate. So, use your tools appropriately, I suppose.
Yeah, during the pandemic, it was awkward because they were, public buildings were closed down. They were having all their public meetings over Zoom. And how do you protest that? And I'm really not sure of what was the right way to go about that.
I mean, can you hack their meetings? I don't know. Maybe
not
that's
me,
not
but
appropriate
I'm sure there are people who can.
Oh, that's true. That's true. I'm not smart enough to do that either. So anyway.
So you've been, doing a lot of this work, in organizations, advocacy, policy. Do you ever see yourself running for elected office yourself?
No way. It's first of all, it's way more fun on the outside. And I don't think I'm electable because I am a registered libertarian. We've talked about this. Like the left hates libertarians, the right hates libertarians, libertarians hate libertarians, libertarians hate themselves, quite frankly. But I don't want to. This is going to sound weird, but I don't want to be tempted with the trappings and the trappings of power, right? Because I understand that I have an ego and I don't want to become the next John McGee or, you know, somebody who just gets so enamored with power that they sacrifice their values. And I know that like any human can have that temptation and fall to it. And I just don't want to be in a position where people look up to me as some powerful person because I'm arrogant enough and I don't trust myself to regulate that. And it sounds silly, but like, I don't know. I don't want to become a tyrant. I don't want to be somebody like that. So I'd rather play on the outside and see what happens there.
On the one hand, that you know, that's admirable. You have to know yourself and you know, have that humility, but at the same time, you know, I wonder how many good people stay out of, you know, public service because of issues like that. You know,
Dang
like
it.
I
give that speech to everybody else. Stop giving that speech to me.
you know,
No, but I think
the worst are full of passionate intensity, while the best lack all conviction. But obviously, you don't lack conviction. You're out there doing the work, just in a different arena.
no, and I think first of all, I live in Boise. Um, there is no way I couldn't win dog catcher in Boise if it were like I couldn't win like garbage collector in Boise. Like it's not a thing. But I think I don't want to be constrained. There are so many projects I'm working on with a couple different people, both with my main job, but there's some side projects. And like you can't be a public official and a lobbyist because I'll have to register as a lobbyist eventually. Like I just don't want to be constrained by that and the ethics rules. Not that I'm unethical, but like there's just some things you can't do when you're a lawmaker. So it's way more fun to play on the outside. And but I do agree with you. Good people should run because if not, we get people like Treg Burnt. So, oh, did I say that out loud? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no filters here. So you mentioned you're a registered libertarian.
I am.
You know, is that like a tactical decision? Because what I would advise most people is if you have anything close to conservative values, you want to be a Republican, not because the Republican Party is some paragon of conservatism, but because you have the ability within there to push them in the direction you want them to go, and you have more influence than you do in a third party or fourth or fifth or sixth party. So what's your thought process there?
So first of all, I agree with you. If you are a conservative libertarian type, you should absolutely be a registered Republican and help push the party to the right, to where it should be, quite frankly, because it's everyone's saying it's going to the hard right. No, it's going where it should be if you look at the platform. But if I will come back to the Republican Party once Brad Little is gone and Raul Labrador is governor. And I'm dead serious. Like, I cannot be a member of a party where the last two Republicans, the heads of the party, basically, adopt socialist ideas and voice them on the people as conservative or the Idaho way or whatever. Though Butch Otter, you mentioned him earlier, you know, he endorsed Medicaid expansion. Brad Little took the socialist surrender, the money bomb for education. He's giving out freaking free college. Barack Obama didn't even do that. So for me, it's a protest to say, look, guys, this is not a conservative party. Yes, people should push it to the right, but it's a protest thing for me. And I align more closely with the libertarians in that, you know, I've struggled with the weed thing. Like I've gone back and forth on the weed thing. I'm going to say something that somebody will clip and use against me at some point. I've gone back and forth on the abortion thing. I've thought about that a lot, and I've come to a pro-life position. But that's something I've struggled with too. And I think the Republicans have failed in so many ways, and it's just my way of giving the finger to the Republican Party, quite frankly.
Well, that goes back to your the free speech.
There is that.
Honestly, you mentioned Twitter, and obviously you're active on Twitter. You have a lot of fun on Twitter. So do I. Maybe not quite the same, but what attracted me.
You're way more polished and way more respectful than I am. But you're actually like, I like your approach because like I just go and punch people in the face. Like you just snipe people and it's beautiful. I can't do it, like, but it's beautiful. So keep doing that.
Well, appreciate it. But I was going to say, what attracted me is the ability to go tell famous and powerful and influential people exactly what you think of them. That's really, 15 years ago when it first came out, that's what jumped out at me. It's, you mean I can talk to my legislator, I can talk to my congressman and tell them, hey, you're being a dunce about this. That's great. It's like pure American.
Yep, absolutely. It's of all the networks, it's the best. It's such a cesspool, but Twitter is the best social media network there is, because you get people's unfiltered thoughts. And really, what really attracted me to Twitter, like I've been on there since I think I joined in like 09 or 10 or something like that. But it was the Boston bombing, right? I followed along with the Boston bombing from the first bomb going off to through the manhunt. It was wild. It was wild to have people, they're locked down in their homes. They're tweeting. They're like, "Oh my gosh, he just ran past me." It was the wildest thing. And like the other networks can't match that. They absolutely cannot match that. Facebook, you don't see anybody's stuff anymore. You see ads.
Mm-hmm.
I think MySpace, I mean, that's gone, right? Instagram is, you'd have girls making duck face while Sarnov or whatever runs behind it. Like, nothing is like Twitter, and it's the best. And like sports, it's good for that, but like for your purposes and my purposes, being able to access our lawmakers directly is fantastic.
I also have enjoyed Twitter. I mean, the recent update, if you pay for it now, you can post huge walls of text, which I still try to avoid because it really helps teach brevity. If you can get your point across in 280 characters, then, that's a really great skill, I think.
Yeah. And were you on it when it was 160? Like, whoo,
oh yeah,
that was wild. Those days were special.
It was fun. I mean, pre 2016, after the whole Trump thing, there's the story that people online basically memed Trump into office, and so the social networks decided not to let that happen again.
Right.
And that's really kind of when the censorship started happening. But back in the old days, it was a lot of fun, and
it's
maybe someday again.
Yeah, it's sad that we can't trust people to just have conversations, because the answer to bad speech and hate speech is more speech, not censoring people.
Exactly.
Because you censor people and you make them victims, and you get more people interested in what they're saying, and you make them sympathetic figures. Don't censor people, no matter what. I don't care what they're saying. They can be racist, they can be homophobic, they can be whatever. I actually want to know what they're saying, so so that we can have that discussion. So hopefully Elon Musk is doing God's work, and I don't know. I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing.
Yeah, it's we have to have open discourse, even if it's distasteful. If you censor people on either the far left or the far right, they're going to go off into their echo chambers and just become more passionate about whatever thing that is getting them in trouble. But if you bring them into the discourse, and there can be a moderating effect, and at least that's what I've noticed.
I think Twitter is the antidote to public relations, right? Because what you have with modern public relations and the media landscape, right? Reporters, if there are any reporters left, most of them are being laid off, which is fine with me. But if there are any, they're all left-wingers. And then you get a lot of propaganda from Flax for, the communication directors for the politicians. And you get these like really polished, not fact check, but poll tested language, and everyone's just trying to pull one over on you and say stuff without actually saying it. Right? On Twitter, we call bullshit. Like, we're like, there's none of that garbage. And if there is, you get called on the carpet real quick. I think the one thing that I love about Donald Trump, sometimes, most of the time, is like, what he's thinking. There's no polished press release. There's no poll tested messaging. There's no, oh, don't say this, don't say that. It's, I'm on the toilet taking a crap. Here's what I'm tweeting about. Here's what I'm thinking about. Like, I think that's probably my favorite thing about Twitter. And that's why I go so hard and do what I do on Twitter, because like, I think the more we filter ourselves, the less we progress as a society, because we don't know what truth is. If we're listening to polished garbage put out by Flax, who went to J school and are liberal as hell, like, there's no way for us to actually have a conversation with the truth. So just say what the hell's on your mind, and let's deal with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Um, I think many years ago, Franklin Roosevelt, he was able to connect to the American people in a way nobody else could before because he was using radio. And so it's like he's right there in your living room. He's not some far off president. He's a family friend. He's just sitting there, chatting and sharing his vision. And I really do think, Trump crossed that barrier with Twitter, sharing his unvarnished thoughts, one way or the other, and making a connection that hadn't been there before. And I think hopefully we're going to see a lot more of that going forward from all sides.
Yeah, and I think there's some public officials that use Twitter really, really well. I think of and I don't necessarily agree with their politics. Luke Kavanagh, right, in Meridian.
Mm-hmm.
Don't agree with all of his positions, but the dude uses Twitter really, really well to explain stuff, to take complaints, to just interact with the public. I love how Brian Lenny uses Twitter, mostly because he's a troll like I am, but like he's also like not putting out press releases, not he's just saying, look, F you guys, I'm going to tell you what I think. I'm going to tell you who I am. I'm going to be brave and honest. And I wish more public officials would be like that. I really do.
Yeah, I think people want authenticity, and cut away the politician speak where you give a long rambling answer that doesn't actually answer the question. Just say what you think, and if people like it, they'll support you.
Yeah, it's the difference between Donald Trump and I don't even know the lady, the affirmative action hire who's the press secretary for Joe Biden. Like she speaks, yeah. And I don't even know what she said. Like, and I have ADHD. Like, I have a hard time with this anyway. But like, I don't understand the hell thing you said. Like, what? So, I think more people should be on it. Don't come on Twitter if you're a pansy, if you're not ready to throw punches and take punches. I've taken punches from my own team. I give them. That's how Twitter works. Do it, be it. And if you're a public official, don't be a pansy about it either. Go on there, take punches, interact with your constituents. It will make us all better.
Yeah, it's the arena, that Theodore Roosevelt talks about. You get in there, it's like you're going in the ring, strapping on your gloves. You give punches, take punches, and that's the way it is. And then, you can still be civil with people in real life. It's It doesn't have to descend into just outright hatred.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You're a better man than I am. There are a few. Yeah, you're a better man than I am.
Well, there's a few people I dislike in Idaho politics, just truly dislike. But most people, even if I disagree with them,
can you name names?
Yeah.
Okay, I won't make you do that, but.
No, I'm just saying most people, even if I disagree with them, I can come after them on Twitter, tell them what I really think of them and their policies, and then, shake their hand and say, pleasure to meet you.
Well, and I think the thing that you excel at is, and this is where I'm super jealous. Like, again, your meme game, you think it's a joke, but your meme game is unparalleled. And as you think about political speech, one of the points of political speech is to point out the absurdities and where politicians are trying to lie to you. And memes, oh my gosh, they just hit home so brilliantly. I think you put one together where it was the guy with the two buttons, and it illustrated that the people who are hating on Brian Lenny and Tammy Nichols and Chris Trakel, they're saying, oh, they're far right extremists, but they're also far left extremists. And it was a brilliant meme. And I love memes because you get your point across and you educate people and you make fun of idiots.
Yeah, it's fun. This is a fun time to be in the discourse, I think, because you can do things like that. It's I don't know, the equivalent of political cartoons from back in the day.
Yep.
Thomas Nast created the elephant to represent Republicans and the donkey to represent Democrats. And they'd, a politician they didn't like, they'd put devil horns on or something like that. Yep. And this really is just taking it to the next level. It's taking, a concept that people are already familiar with and putting, political figures into that concept to show, okay, they're being absurd.
Yeah. And I think we're seeing the emergence, thank you to Brian Lenny and other people, of AI in this. And that's interesting. I think that's going to get old quickly because some of the images is like, okay, like, I don't know, there's not as much creativity in there yet. My favorite cartoonist is I don't know, maybe I favor the cartoons because they're just very well thought out, and that's where AI struggles. I will say I am terrified of deepfakes and where this heads next, because I don't think there are a lot of people who are idiots who will be absolutely fooled by deepfakes, and I'm not sure what to do with that. But that's another discussion for another day.
Well, yeah, there's two dangers. One is that they'll be able to make deepfakes and convince people that it's real, but then anything that is real, they'll say, "Oh no, that's a deepfake." So
Dude, we are going. Yeah, sorry. Go
next
ahead.
time they've got Biden falling down the stairs, they'll say, "Oh no, that image." Fact checkers have found that image was fake.
We are entering a post. I mean, we're in a post truth society, and we have been for a while. But like, we are in a post truth hellscape in about 5 years. It's going to be the worst, and I don't even know what to do about it. Like, I've thought about how to combat this, and I think it comes down to multi-sourcing. There was a book by Dave Eggers called The Circle, and it was about the peer pressure about social media, and there's lots of issues about transparency and stuff like that. But what ended up happening is they started pressuring people to share every little detail of their lives with the public, and if you weren't, you were shamed as selfish and not being willing to uplift your community or whatever. It was a combination of Google and Facebook. Everybody should read the book, by the way. But what ended up happening is the protagonist ended up wearing a body cam and broadcasted her life 24/7. And I almost wonder if we're going to have to go that way to make sure, because if you have 15 different sources of video on one single event, then you can combat the deepfake thing. But like, that is also a terrifying idea, that we would be recording everything all the time, and that's how we combat deepfakes. Like, I don't want to go into that either. Like, we're screwed, man. We are so screwed.
Well, you make the future sound terrifying either way. So I have a question, a family question, if that's all right.
Sure.
It's apparent to anybody who knows you that you have significant disagreements with your brother, who is involved in Republican Party politics and has run several campaigns. What it makes me curious about, not the details of those disagreements or any issues, but how, you both came from, grew up in the same place, right? Same family, same household, and you both got into politics. So there's obviously something there, but your approaches to it are so very different. So what shaped you and made you the person you are today, coming from that environment?
I don't know how to answer this, man. Like, this is going to be tough, because so for those who know or don't, I want to give a little bit of background. Tyler is my brother. He ran Debbie Critchfield's campaign. He runs a number of local campaigns. He's kind of a rising star in the establishment right, as far as, running campaigns and doing the back end stuff that needs to be done. And to him, I have to give him a lot of credit, right? Because he actually helped me get into politics. I was a nervous Nelly when I was in college, and like, he actually opened the door for me to get the internship with Bill Sally. Like, he called up Bill Sally's office, was like, "Get my brother a job." I was like, "That's not how you do that." So really, anybody who hates me needs to blame Tyler for me being in politics. So let's just get that out there, right? Like, it's a thing. But Tyler is, I have to be very careful with my words here, because I don't want to offend anybody, because there are a lot of people that like Tyler. Tyler, okay, I'm just going to go after it. Tyler's a good person who I think gets lost by the pursuit of power. He wants the status. He wants to be in elected office. He wants to be what I referenced earlier. He wants to be the person who is making the decisions, who has the status, has the title, has all the lobbyists, begging him for attention, gets donations, gets the big money. That's who he is. And that's okay, I suppose. That's not how I am. There's a scripture, and I know that you have some followers who may not love LDS scripture, but there's one scripture from the Book of Mormon that really shaped me, and it's a guy named Captain Moroni, and he's a captain in the army, and he has thoughts. He's out there fighting, and he says, or he believes that the leader of his tribe or his people has turned his back on him, and the soldiers out there fighting, and he writes this just blazing epistle to the president or leader guy, and he says, "If you've turned your back on me, I will come and hunt you down and kill you too." Right? And at the end of it, he says, "I seek not for power, but for the glory of God and for the welfare of my people." That scripture has had more impact on me than any other piece of written word ever. I have no desire to govern you. I have no desire to tell you how to live your life. I just want you to be well and to leave me the hell alone. I want you to search out your God and your happiness by yourself. I'll help if you ask me. I have no intention of ruling anyone. So that's the big difference between us. Like, I don't want to rule. I truly believe that humans are morons, and I might be the biggest one. I don't know how Brian Ullman needs to live his life. I don't know how you need to parent your kids. I don't know how you need to what substances you need in your body. You do that. Now, there are some rules that I think as society we can agree on. Don't abuse your kids. Maybe abortion should be illegal. Don't hurt people and don't take their stuff. Other than that, leave me the hell alone, and I'll leave you the hell alone. I don't want power. That's the difference between the two of us.
Well, it seems like a lot of people who do get involved in this field, they want power somehow to, shape society to, their vision, or, maybe it is more petty than that, just because they see people living lives that they don't agree with and want to change that. So no, that's a good perspective.
Yeah, I think Tyler, at his heart, I think he is conservative and wants to be conservative, but that lust for power it's something, man. And I again, like I said, I've recognized it in myself. I mean, who doesn't like power? Who doesn't like being the man or the woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I stay away from it, because I know that could get toxic real quick. And how many of our leaders, supposedly good, godly men and women, have fallen prey to that? That's why staying away from it.
It really is like a drug. You get a little bit of it, you get a taste, and you just want more and more and more and more. So you mentioned, your LDS faith, and that I actually had a question about that.
Sure.
It seems like there's a few very outspoken, super conservative members of the LDS Church. Tammy Nichols, Marie
and Nate.
Marie and Nate, yeah, Marie and Ron Nate.
Yeah.
But it seems to be a minority within the church. So what is it that is creating that divide? And I guess, how do we as conservatives reach, the majority who comprise a very, powerful political voting bloc here in Idaho?
I wish I had an answer for you. I don't. There are some of the best freedom fighters I know are LDS, and some of the worst Republicans are LDS. I do not know. If I knew this, we would already have captured Eastern Idaho in the elections. I think the one thing that I think a lot of Mormons struggle with is they haven't broken through the idea of, we support our leaders, we sustain our leaders no matter what. And that trickles over from, and what I talked about earlier, which is that our leaders are good men and good women. That's not necessarily true. And what you see a lot of times is just this over in Eastern Idaho, what you'll see is a squishy leftist Republican like Brent Hill or, a Bart Davis type. And they've been a leader in the LDS Church, and they might have been an amazing godly servant. That doesn't make them a great liberty-loving legislator or conservative Republican. But because they've had that status in the church, people just say, oh, well, he's a godly man. That doesn't make him a conservative. So I think that's a big part of it. But again, I don't know why the divide is happening, but I think you're actually seeing, you're going to see a lot more division within those two camps, because I think the church is going to the left a little bit on some things. And there's a tipping point for me where we have what's called the Proclamation on the Family, which was issued in 1996. And everybody thought at the time, they're like, oh yeah, we know that men are men and women are women. Like that was one of the core tenets of the Proclamation on the Family. And everyone was kind of like, why do we need that? Well, we know why we need that today. If that doctrine ever gets changed by the church, like I'm done. Like I am out, because then we know that it's been captured by the woke ideology. And I think a lot of people didn't like and I was one of them, I didn't like the church's statement on the Hamas terrorist attack, because it was kind of like one of those, It was like there was an eruption of violence. That's not what it was. That's not at all what it was. It was a brutal terrorist attack carried out by bloodthirsty terrorists bent on destroying a people. Like, could we say that? Like, again, it's that spin and propaganda we're talking about. So you're going to see more division, and both camps are going to say, well, we're separating the wheat from the chaff, and we're the wheat. It's going to be fascinating to watch.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm not LDS myself, but it is an interesting body of people in that, it's so closely tied to American history, and especially out here out west, it's probably more than any other church or religious group connected to the American ideals in the Constitution.
Well, it's interesting that to me, there are a lot of Mormons who are going left, right? Which means more trust in government, more belief in government programs, this or that. We are the only church, we were talking about this at the conference I was at yesterday. We are the only church in American history to ever have an extermination order issued against us. That's a thing that happened. The governor of Missouri, Governor Boggs, issued a shoot on sight order for Mormons. And yet we don't learn from history. Now, I'm not saying that's coming again, but like, could we not repeat the mistakes of the past, guys? Like, it's ugly.
I don't know. I guess that, that's kind of the big divide in the entire, conservative movement, Republican Party. The right is, do we trust the institutions, or are we, are we still the establishment, or are we dissidents? And I think it's coming down on both sides now.
Yeah. If the established institutions did what they were supposed to do in a very limited scale, totally cool with it. Like, I mostly trust the post office, for example, because it hasn't grown beyond what it's supposed to do, mostly. Although they do have a police force, which I don't like. But I don't know. I'm just generally distrustful of stuff like that. So I wish more people were.
So I'm sure you've been itching to talk about this, so I'll bring it up.
I haven't been. Really,
anyone who follows you on Twitter knows that you're not the biggest fan of Donald Trump, to say the least. And you've generally supported Ron DeSantis in this Republican primary. Mm-hmm. Now, I have generally supported Trump. I've written about why. I think he's, he can be a tool, but he's our tool against the establishment. However, I try not to waste too much time on the national stuff. It's local is where it's at. But however, it's still something. Like, it's like watching the football game. You want to talk about the strengths and weaknesses of each team, and then see what happens when the game starts. So, what are your thoughts on the primary in general? Where do you see it going from here? What do how would you handicap it at this point?
So a couple things. There are a lot of thoughts here. Number one, Trump's going to win. We all know that, right? He's so far ahead in the polls. And we were sniping at each other on Discord today. He's so far ahead in the polls, he's going to win. But I don't know that I think that's good for our country. But I also don't know. Ron DeSantis, a lot of people are saying he would be Jeb Bush or George Bush or whatever, because those folks are backing him. He would absolutely be a disappointment. Absolutely. So thinking through this, I don't know, man. There's just something about Donald Trump that is so off-putting to me. And whether or not you buy this agreement or not, or buy this or not, if you look at the raw data, I was just in Arizona, and there are a few people there I was talking to. They're like, look, the 4 Trump endorsed people in the last election, Governor Carrie Lake being one of them, the 4 Trump people that were endorsed for statewide office lost. There were 4 who were not endorsed by him, and they won. Now, you say, well, there was a lot of different factors, and that election was stolen or whatever. But look at Georgia, right? Governor Kemp won, and Trump's picks lost. I just don't think that he has the winning solution. Do I think his first term was really good for America? Of course I do. His legacy is his Supreme Court picks, and he picked brilliantly. Justice Gorsuch will go down as one of the best judges in the history of the country. But I do think it's time to move on, because I think Trump is very, very polarizing. And I think more than that, I think Ron DeSantis would actually be a more effective weapon I love what he's done in Florida. I love that he has absolutely smashed the Democrat Party there. I love that he's gone after, bad, the Soros DA types. I love how he's just crushed the woke agenda. Has he been perfect, as you pointed out? No, but I think he's actually smarter than Trump in that he's more tactical and more strategic, and would actually get more stuff done. And he can serve 2 terms. So that I'd love to see two terms of Ron DeSantis. Now, am I living in fantasy land? Yes, Trump's going to win. Will DeSantis be around in 28? Probably. We'll see. I don't know. I wish we didn't have to pick from such bad people.
Well, I would say that of the chaos that has surrounded Trump, I think it's a symptom of our times and not necessarily the man. I think the times came first and then the man appeared. So it. How do I explain it? I don't think that there's a way of going back to a less polarizing figure who can also get things done. I think we're just in a very polarized time.
Oh, sure.
And personally, and I said this a year ago, I thought DeSantis should have supported Trump, and then Trump turns around and puts him on the ticket as vice president, and then win or lose, he is the heir apparent, the front runner for 2028. But I think in both cases, both their egos couldn't handle it. They, neither, could, humility is not something that is very common in politics, unfortunately.
I think my problem with Trump too, and this happens with anyone, so maybe DeSantis does this too, I don't know. But it seems like Trump is very good at stabbing his people square in the back, or not. He tells you he hires the best people. And then a year later, after they don't work out, oh, they were an idiot. They were an idiot. How many people in his administration, Rex Tillerson, the Mad Dog General or whatever, like how many people has he done that to? Like a lot. And that's not leadership. It's like, wait, are they an idiot or are they the best people? Which one is it, Donald? There's just something there that just grates me. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think even the most ardent Trump supporters would agree that personnel has not been his strong suit. It's, my theory is that he came into it thinking it's like a business. Okay, I'm building a building. I need to hire a contractor or a superintendent to build the building. Somebody who's good at building buildings, and he'll build it, and I'll pay him, and that's it. But then he gets into politics, and it's like, Game of Thrones or something, where everybody's scheming against each other and stabbing each other in the back, and so that's where you get hiring and firing, but. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a dirty business.
But I will agree with you. Like at the end of the day, what your readers and listeners need to take away from this is this doesn't matter. Your vote, I'm going to say this, your vote for president does not matter one bit.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in the primary. I mean, DeSantis may come to Idaho, who knows? But as far as caring about, we're all so enamored, like, because Fox News is making this a thing because it's, and CNN and MSNBC, like, presidential politics sells. I get it, but first of all, Donald Trump doesn't know your name. He doesn't care about you. Joe Biden doesn't know your name. He doesn't give one crap about you. But if you're not engaged in local elections and legislative races, you're doing it wrong. So I get a little fired up about this because you will never, ever talk to Donald Trump, ever. But you could talk to your mayor. You could talk to your school board member, and you could have a massive effect on lives around you. That's the truth. And so stop caring about Jim Risch. Stop caring about Mike Crapo, Russ Fulcher, Mike Simpson. Stop caring about all of them. Start getting familiar with your school board members.
Yeah, I think that's a symptom of the, how news has turned into entertainment. And that's been a problem for decades now. Yep. And I would say you might have an effect on the presidential contest if you're in a swing district in Georgia or something, which we are not. Yeah. Idaho's going to go red. Oregon and Washington will go blue. That's just the way it is. The entire presidential election, what sets the course for our entire country is decided by a few counties in Arizona and Pennsylvania and Georgia now, which is probably not what the founders intended, but we can't really fix it now. But no, you're absolutely right. Your mayor, your council members, your school board members, the people we voted for just earlier, earlier this week, it's been a long week. these are not only your neighbors who you can run into and you can talk to in person, and you can ask them, what the heck are you thinking because of what you did? But they're also going to have a lot more effect on your life and your family's lives than the president or your senators.
Yeah, there's a friend of mine, John Livingston, who lives in Garden City, and I don't know how I feel about the outcome. So there was a developer who was going to buy up some of the golf course off State Street in Boise and turn it into condos, make it into True Street or whatever. And John was like, "No, we're not doing all that, right?" So instead of like just sitting back, like he got active, got an attorney, got money raised, and they fought, and they scaled back the size of the development because John fought. Like, you can have massive impact at the local level. You've had impact, I've had impact. Things can get done if we stop worrying about stuff that doesn't matter. Not one bit.
Yeah, it really is just for entertainment purposes. It's what political junkies watch instead of sitcoms or soap operas or whatever it is people watch on TV these days.
Yep. And it's just, I hate throwing around the term grifters, but it is a grift. Like it's and Vivek has mastered this, by the way. It's who can give us the most outrageous body slamming, body stacking quote, so then we can put it out on Twitter and Facebook and raise money off of it, right? Yep. And they have to. I get it. It's a game, but you don't have to play the game. You do not, and your life is a lot better if you don't play the game.
And the only people winning are the people that all that money's going to, the campaign consultants and the media companies.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
But what it makes me think, though, looking at the way the primary is structured and everything, is that what makes a good campaigner is not necessarily what makes a good legislator or executive. Somebody can be a really good candidate. They can be a great speaker, get out there and meet people. I was told by someone who used to be in Congress that Kevin McCarthy has zero principles, but he's great at schmoozing. He remembers your name. He can make you feel like he's your friend. Bill Clinton was the same way. But that doesn't mean they're very good, legislators or executives. So how do you find a good candidate? And I guess this applies for here in Idaho, as you're trying to find people to run for Senate, run for state house. How do you find someone who's both? Someone who can win, but then is effective once they're in office?
The answer to this is to clone Brian Lenny or Scott Herndon. And I mean that, right? Those guys know how to campaign. They're effective in what they do. They can schmooze people. They can write really well. They're happy. They're not just miserable people all the time. But then when they get to office, their character shines through and they remain who they are. Do I know how to find those people? Absolutely not. Because like you said, a lot of good people just don't want to run and won't run. But if people are looking for examples, I would look to Brian Lenny. I would look to Scott Herndon, Cindy Carlson, Christy Zitto. Oh my gosh. So that's the best example. Christy is probably my favorite lawmaker in the history of ever, because she actually believes what she says and she cares about her constituents like a mother cares for her children. When there was a special session during the pandemic where they came back to do like limited liability protection legislation to make sure people weren't getting sued over COVID or whatever. And there was a moment where Christy, she was in the committee hearing and she just broke down in tears saying, people are suffering. They're dying without their loved ones around them. They're lonely. She cares. She has a heart and she's authentic. If we could get 105 Christy Zittos, Idaho would be so much better off for it. So I don't know how to find these people. But if we could find more of them, that'd be swell. That'd be really cool.
So I've heard Theo Wold a few times. He, the former Solicitor General, worked on Raul Labrador's campaign. He openly admits that he has a reputation as a kind of a black pillar. He said in the Trump White House he was called the storm cloud because he always brought bad news. I heard him say that he thinks that the establishment's going to strike back after last year, where so many great conservatives like Brian Lenny, like Scott Herndon, were elected. Now, I've heard you say the opposite, that you think that Liberty is going to, take some more scalps, that we're going to get some more, our Senate and House are going to become more conservative. So I really don't know. I'm still reasonably new to Idaho politics. what do you think is going to happen, and why do you think it's going to happen, and what do we need to do to make it happen?
This is the question I've been waiting for, Brian. This is the one. Listen, both Theo and I are correct, right? Yes, the Empire is going to strike back, and you're already seeing it. There was a couple weeks ago that some fake pack, Idaho Liberty PAC, which is funny that they have to name it that because they know we're winning, right? They know we're winning, so they have to imitate what we're doing. So they attacked Brian Lenny and Chris Trakel and Tammy Nichols with $47,000. It's freaking November. Okay, so they are absolutely terrified. There was a moment. So for those who aren't initiated, the Idaho Senate was a haven of liberal Republicans forever. It was Mitt Romney on steroids, right? And last election, with the work of a couple of organizations, including Idaho Freedom PAC, we flipped like 11 or 12 Senate seats. It was unbelievable, unprecedented, and beautiful. The moment that it really hit me that we kicked our asses was when I got the word that Chris Trakel, it was like 2:30 in the morning, where Chris Trakel beat Greg Cheney. Like, I let out a whoop in the hotel lobby because I was so damn excited, right? What's coming over the next few months is an absolute brawl. It's going to be a bloodbath both ways. I'm very confident that we're going to be able to find the resources to keep our people in and to make some gains, right? And here's why I say that. Most of our people that were elected come from very, very conservative districts. Very few of them come from swing districts, right? Scott Herndon might be in trouble, but I'm pretty sure we're good there with a lot of work. Because Jim Woodward's just not a good candidate. He is so stiff. If you saw his very awkward campaign commercial, he's so stiff. He's not a good candidate. But there was some issues. I don't want to dive into this, but like, there were some issues up there recently. Like, we got to watch that one. Glenita Zuderveld, she won by like 37 votes, right? There is a very liberal city councilor who's pro illegal immigration, anti Dorothy Moon, coming after her. Okay, bring it on. Bring it on. I've got something on my sleeve for her. So Glenita is going to have a fight on her hands. But Brian Lenny, very conservative district, and people saw what Jeff Agenbrod was last time. Lori Bishop coming after Tammy Nichols. She's a freaking leftist. You're coming at us with a leftist in that district? But look at where we're going to make gains. Abby Lee, you cannot, I'm going to say this, you cannot vote to allow kids to cut off their private parts and call yourself a Republican and expect to win another office ever again. Ever again. Abby Lee is dead woman walking. Jeff Schroeder, same thing. You are dead man walking. Christy Zito is going to bury him. Mm-hmm. Now, the one that's tough is Treg Burnt, right? Mr. Main Street Idaho Caucus. That district is going to be a little tougher, but I'm optimistic there. So we have the places, we know where we can make gains. Where are they going to make gains? They're going to make gains in District 7 and take out Cindy Carlson? Please, come at me, bro. Goodness gracious.
Yeah. This is what I love about you. You're just, so passionate about getting out there and winning this game instead of just playing the game to play it.
And here's the thing. It's not about winning and losing. Like, going back to my thoughts on Tyler, I don't care about winning per se, because it's not like sometimes I do it. And this is where I get bad. Like, yeah, I'm very proud of the work we did last time. But most important is that we change the culture of the Senate, and we're this close to taking over and making sure conservative things actually happen, that we're not taking my freaking money and giving it to kids who, want to go to college. I paid for college by doing pest control. You pay dude, you can flip burgers for $15 an hour. You can pay for college. I don't want to pay for your college. I want to pay for my kids' college. So that's what it's about. It's about securing wins so that we can actually have Republicans who act like Republicans. I'm sorry if I'm very fired up, but like, I am so ready for this fight. And yes, it's good. The Empire is going to strike. We're ready for him. I promise you. We have something. We have our ads. They're written. They're ready. We're ready for this fight.
Excellent. All right. Well, I've appreciated your time. I have two more questions. One serious one and one a little more fun. Which one should I do first?
Let's do the serious one, and then we'll end on a fun note.
Okay. So serious question. What is your biggest accomplishment in your time, as an activist in Idaho politics, and what would you like it to accomplish in the future?
My biggest accomplishment. Um,
What's something, what's what you're most proud of having done in the last, 10, 15 years?
there are two things. As far as a communications guy, because I was a comms guy for IFF, I produced a documentary called Hope Vetoed, which was about a young wrestler from Salmon, Idaho, who has seizures and needs CBD oil, which has a little bit of THC in it, to cut down on his seizures. We produced that. I learned a lot of lessons. It was probably a little bit too long. It was way too long. It was like 22 minutes, way too long. But it's a beautiful story. There's actually a moment where one of his buddies, who's got like earrings in, he's got facial hair, he's got a couple tattoos, but he breaks down crying, thinking about his friend dying on a school bus in the middle of nowhere because he's having a seizure. Like, when it comes down to favorite projects, things I've done, that's probably my best thing I've ever produced. But as far as legislative wins, we worked on pension reform for public officials. So what would happen? I'll try to be brief about this, but what would happen is state legislators would serve part-time in office, and they would accrue up like 20 years, right? And that would be part-time pension credit until they got a cushy six-figure job. They would have to stay at that six-figure job for 42 months. And then all of those years in office were treated like full-time, which bumped up their pension from, maybe 20,000, actually probably like 5,000 a year to like 60,000 a year. It was unbelievable how people were getting paid by doing this. So we kept writing about it and writing about it. And every time somebody got appointed, that was my very first story. Finally, Brad Little, to his credit, took care of that, signed it. And it's the pension payoff is no more. And it was a kind of an under the radar thing, but I think it was important for good governance.
Sometimes it's those under the radar things that make the biggest difference in the long run for a state.
Yep. I totally agree.
All right. Last question then. Has anyone ever actually taken you up on your offer to box for charity?
No, and I wish they would. I really do. Like, I think that would be a great look. Whether it's Greg Graff or Tyler or Brandon Durst, I don't know. Like, I don't care. Like, I think it would be really fun to actually like get together at a ring, put on the gloves, and literally beat the crap out of each other the way we do on Twitter in real life and raise money for a good cause. Like, that's not me being violent. That's just me being frustrated. And like, I'd love to just box somebody and they'd get some shots in on me. Like, that'd be so much fun. Like, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, it's a civilized thing, Marquess of Queensbury rules and all that. But I mean, I've seen what you bench though, so I don't think I'd want to get hit by you.
Yeah, I would have to box with one hand behind my back or something, because it would not be a fair fight. But I really wish somebody would take me up on the offer, because I've never actually boxed and I've always wanted to. And I don't know, I may not have good form or whatever, but it'd be fun. So if you want to do that, if you're watching Brian's podcast or whatever, give me a call. I'd love to do it. We just have to raise money for like the food bank or something.
Well, hopefully someday soon someone actually follows through.
Do you want to do it?
I don't know. I've never boxed either. If Alex Stein can do it, he's out there boxing a couple times now. That's apparently the thing now. So
yeah, I think it'd be fun. So anyway,
all right. Well, thank you, Dustin Hurst, for taking an hour of your day. I know you're really busy, and you've got your family as well. I need to get back to mine. So, thanks for everything you've been doing, and keep up the fight.
Yeah, and I would say one last pitch. Guys, Brian is really, really smart. I may disagree with him on Trump and some other things, but like, Brian offers really good perspectives on politics and policy, and he's like the wise old sage that we never knew we needed. Like, we should absolutely, if you're not subscribed, subscribe. And he didn't pay me to say this, by the way, but I just believe in the work that he's doing. So please subscribe. Make sure that he can keep doing this, because we need this commentary. We need more voices like Brian, but he's doing really good work. So please subscribe to him as soon as possible.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Is there anything of yours you want to shout out before we go?
Yeah, a couple things. If you are interested in the donor privacy stuff that we're doing to make sure that, you know, Chuck Winder doesn't get the IFA or IFF donor list, go to unitedforprivacy.com. Learn about the work we're doing. You can donate there. If you want to help defend people like Brian Lenny, we work with Idaho for, you know, like I said, I work with Idaho Freedom Pack, idahofreedompack.com/donate. We could use every penny is going to be used. We don't hire consultants. I do the work for free. In fact, I got to go stuff some letters tonight. We could really use support there. We got a couple other projects that are coming that we'll announce in a couple weeks, but yeah, I think that's it.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing what happens next.
All right, thanks, Brian.